thanks for joining us. If you want to just do a quick introduction about yourself, like let us know where you are and how you got into photography.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is David Coyne. I'm an automotive photographer. I also work in the automotive industry. So a lot of my photography, I mean, I started in 2010. Uh, I was always interested in cars, kind of like in high school. I took auto shop, auto tech. Really interested in cars. Some of my buddies had some cool stuff like RX-7, like FDs and stuff like that. So I worked on some rotary cars, just other cars that they had. So it was cool. Um, and then from high school, I just started taking a photography class in junior college and kind of got kickstarted from there, going to Cars and Coffee Irvine and Crystal Cove before I got kicked out the first time. And just doing photography there for fun, uploading on social media. And then from there, just kind of spiraled into people reaching out to photograph their cars, collections, just all people that live local, and which was fantastic, a lot of fun. But mainly it was kind of a hobby and made a little bit of money to help for college and stuff like that as I continued on to um, go on get my degree in finance at Cal State Fullerton. And then the photography, it's funny because I don't do it full time. It's kind of like a passion slash part-time job um, that I do. It's funny because jobs come in waves and then I don't get anything for months. But then from college, it was really cool because the photography helped me get into the OEM space. So my first job out of college was an internship. So I worked on the marketing team for Porsche Cars North America for their Western region, doing all marketing activations, auto shows, stuff like that. So I did that for 1 year. And then after that, I worked at Ferrari Newport Beach for a really quick stint for about 4 months. And then through a mutual connection, I met at Monterey Car Week. Funnily enough, his name's Paul, awesome guy. He worked for Infinity at the time, Infinity Motors Nissan. So he helped me get a job at Infinity. So I worked there for 3 years at what is called a field operations specialist for their Western region. So I did a lot of like the data analytics, analysis, sales trends. Um, and sorry if this is very long-winded, but I'm just kind of going over how photography has helped me not just with photography, but also my personal career growth too, which is interesting. And then from now, I work for Kia Motors. I've been there, it's going to be 5 years on the 8th. So now I'm a district sales manager in San Diego and Hawaii for Kia Motors. And it's been an awesome ride, awesome manufacturer to work for. Still do photography kind of on the side. Like last year, I shot the reveal photos for Lotus for their Type 66, which was their kind of like Can-Am rebirth car. They're making like 10 of them. So I did all the shots for their global debut. Those are the kind of jobs I do like once in a while, but it's awesome. I love it.
Nice. And what you mentioned the Monterey Car Week. So when was the first time you ever went there, and how did you hear about it, and how did you kind of navigate your way around?
Yeah, so the first time I went to Monterey Car Week was 2013 was the very first time I went. So I heard about it through Gordon Chang or F Spot on YouTube. So I heard about it from him, and then other people like Spencer Burke from back in the day. I knew they went a couple of times, and I saw the photos they would upload. I'm like, okay, I have to go to this. Um, so yeah, and I've been every year since. I love it. And now like I go, my wife goes with me, and we go to the events and stuff. So it's been an awesome ride. But yeah, from 2013 on is when I started going to Monterey Car Week.
And then, so when you first went there, you kind of were you invited to any of the events, or you kind of just did you bring your camera along, or like how did you kind of evolve into actually feel like taking photos and getting a event like a media pass or something like that?
Yeah, so the first year I went, I applied for media credentials for Pebble Beach, and I got them. So that was the only event I got media credentials for, and I didn't have any money to buy tickets to any of these other events. So the first 2 years, I mean, I went to Pebble both times on Sunday, but every other thing I did was just kind of like either waiting outside the shows, or most of the work I did the first couple years was just car spotting on 17 Mile Drive and going to Carmel by the Sea. And that's a lot of what I did, because I wanted to capture the cars and the scenery, not necessarily the cars just like parked on the side of the road. So I did a lot of just sitting on 17 Mile Drive for hours, just waiting for some cool stuff to come by. And luckily, that's not too difficult of a task during car week.
It's a good time to, I guess, to wait around. Hopefully, there'll be cars coming through. Is there
Mhm.
like a peak time, or are you just throughout the day they kind of all roll by?
It depends. So like I really keep track of the schedules of what events are going on. So like the day of the quail, which is on Fridays, like there's usually no one out driving. There might be a couple, but there's a lot of events on the Friday and then also Sunday. So usually I sit on 17 Mile Drive on Thursday. Like Thursday evening's really good. If you're there on Wednesday evening. But typically for me, the evenings are really good, and sometimes really early in the morning is really good too. You can find some cool stuff and shoots going on.
Yeah, because you mentioned like after the show, you can kind of at least predict that there's going to be some cars leaving the event, so you can kind
Hmm.
of capture some shots there. But you
Yeah.
mentioned the night the 17-mile beach, and then is there other areas that are popular? I know there was like a another spot that the police have kind of shut down and made it difficult for different.
Yeah, so I mean, same thing, like 17 Mile Drive, usually Wednesday and Thursday they don't, but like Friday, Saturday, they set up like checkpoints along 17 Mile Drive to essentially slow people down and make them kind of like weave around and stuff to slow traffic down. And there's definitely a police presence, which, in my personal opinion, needs to happen because people are just absolutely reckless. Like, I'm all down for a spirited drive, but like a lot of these people are completely reckless and extremely unsafe. Same thing happened. So the other location you're talking about is Carmel by the Sea. Carmel by the Sea is awesome. There's always like everyone going to dinner and they bring their cars, they park them, really cool stuff. But same thing, like these clowns come in from wherever and do burnouts and try to do donuts in the middle of the street in a really crowded, tiny little town. And honestly, I'm afraid they're going to get all this stuff shut down just from the reckless behavior because people want to come and just show off. I won't say what kind of cars it typically is because I'll probably piss off a lot of people, but it's a specific kind of genre of vehicles that usually do it.
Yeah, I think people can take a guess. But yeah, like it's normally, I guess, a sleepy like fishing village with a lot of retirees. So when all these cars come and make a lot of noise, I'm sure they did get too impressed.
Yeah, yeah.
So going back to the events, like what are their events? Like I know the Quails on Friday, and then what's on Saturday, and then Sundays Pebble Beach.
Yeah, so typically Sunday, I only do Pebble Beach. I usually do the mornings. I usually do dawn patrol, and I'm out of there by like 10:30, 11. Just depending if I'm shooting for them or not. Like last year, I was on their photo team, so I typically try to stay the whole event. But it's a really long day because I get there at 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning, and I'm not leaving until like late afternoon. But kind of like the main events, there's events every day throughout the week, but the main events I usually go to, the Quail, which is on Friday. Um, Saturday, they do a lot of the drive-ins for at Pebble Beach. So the display cars for what are they called? The prototypes and stuff like that. They park them on the putting green, so they like actually drive them in. It's just cool because they're cars that aren't road legal yet or aren't built, or they're just like the prototypes of future vehicles. So it's cool seeing them drive those up to that green where they kind of park them, which I always love doing that. And there's also the drive-in for Casa Ferrari the same day at Pebble Beach, where they kind of drive the cars from one of the parking lots down to Pebble, and then they drive them up one of the golf cart paths to where they stage them, and that's always really cool. Makes for great photos because people typically aren't around, and you can get these multi-million-dollar Ferraris all in a row, and it's a great photo opportunity.
Yeah. So do you have like a shot list in mind when you go to these events of like, what do I need to capture? Or like if you're filming or taking photos for somebody, do they kind of give you a list of what they want? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so typically I shoot for the quail. I've done it a couple times in the past, and then same with Pebble. So for the quail, it's usually just kind of my photography now is morphed more into like capturing the event, what's happening, the people, the food, just reactions of people looking at the cars, and then also the vehicles themselves. So I kind of do more of like um, the ambiance of the events. And then for Pebble Beach, typically I shoot like two or three of the classes for them. So I'll just say, hey, like, what classes do you want to cover? Or they go, okay, you're going to shoot the Ferrari, like, post-war racing class or the 1990s FIA racing class. So then I just stick to those two classes only, and I photograph the cars to the judging, to people kind of walking around checking out the cars, like smiling looking at them. But all the other days I try anymore, I mean, I try not to take a bunch of photo jobs on the other days, so I can have it more for like me time and just kind of photograph what I want. Sometimes I'll get people that want to do photo shoots along 17 Mile Drive, and that's easy. I just say, hey, come up, we'll do like 30 minutes, do a couple photos, and then just be on your way. So that's usually kind of my approach now to Car Week.
And then in terms of like taking photos of the cars, like do you have like an idea in mind of what kind of like angles and shots that you need to capture, and like what's like a general amount of photos that you take per shoot? Like if you're just doing like one car, how long does it like do you spend on it?
I always say I can spend like 30 minutes, like especially at Car Week. I try to do them a little bit quicker. I say 30 minutes, but I mean, all the people that know me, I talk a lot. So I'll start yapping, and 30 minutes can turn into 2 hours sometimes, depending on like what we're hanging out and talking about and stuff. But no, I mean, if it comes down just to like getting it done, yeah, I can like 30 minutes. Like I usually just do all the angles, like front, three quarters, like both sides, rear. And then now I usually incorporate like portraits with their vehicles too. So like portrait of the owner with their car, and then like a wide angle shot. I usually have like a shot list of like 10 to 12 pictures, depending on what they want. If they want something really specific, then I'll do it. But I keep it pretty general.
Right, yeah. Because I know like for like a car dealership or something, they might want like a big list of like all the different little features and stuff. Like I don't know if you've done that where you had to have
Mm-hmm.
like a big list of to checklist to check them all off. But if it's just yeah,
Yeah, if I'm shooting like a vehicle for like bring a trailer listing, or if it's a listing for like to show off in a collection, then yeah, and I always ask, I'm like, what's unique to this car that other cars don't have? Or like when I shot the cover for the Quail in 2021, it was like a 330 GT Speciale. There's only four of them built, and each one was like slightly different. So I just had to ask, like, hey, like what's unique about this versus the normal like 330s or 330 GTs. So I love that kind of stuff. So yeah, definitely photographing what's unique and different for the specific vehicles. Yeah, I always get a shot list, especially if it's for something very specific.
yeah, 'cause it's annoying when you kind of do the car and then you see a photo later of a special like logo or something or a gear shift and you go, oh, I should have got that. Like if
I know, I always, after every photo shoot, there's always some sort of regret.
yeah, it's like ah, but yeah, that's the hard thing is like people are they have their own idea of something like their
Mhm.
own vision, and then you have to kind of make them happy with what you do. Yeah.
That's the hardest part. Like when I do photo shoots now, like especially because it's not like my full time gig anymore. I'm very selective with who I choose like as clients. So like if someone contacts me and say, "Oh, I want you to do this, this, and this," and it's completely out of the realm of what I do, I just tell them, "Oh yeah, no thanks." Like, and then I usually give them a reference of someone else that does that. I'm like, "Hey, like here's a couple other guys that can do it." And I essentially tell them now it's probably kind of a jerk move. And I'm like, "Hey, you're either hiring me for what I do, my style, or like go somewhere else."
Yeah.
Essentially, I mean, I'm fortunate enough to be selective. I know it would be a very different story if it was my sole like income. So I'm very fortunate with that situation. But yeah, I mean, like I'm definitely like flexible when I shoot. Like when I did the stuff for Lotus last year, it was cool because like, hey, like we'll give you creative control. But I always know when people say that, there's always going to be some sort of revisions or like editing revision, which is fine. Like I'm the editing, like I started on Photoshop and editing before I ever picked up a camera, so I knew Photoshop extremely well. And this is before like all how to do everything with AI and how to remove backgrounds. Like I knew how to do all that stuff manually. I still edit that way. And like, yeah, the AI is like good for speeding up a workflow. Um, and like even like car week now, like I used to take like my laptop and everything. Now I do everything on my iPad, like when I'm remote. But when I do like actual real photo shoots I'm being paid for, especially if it is for someone like Lotus or Bugatti or whoever, then I'll take it back to my actual rig at home because I got way more horsepower in that thing.
Yeah. Yeah, like in terms of like post production, like you said,
Mhm.
do you use Photoshop for all the photos? Like, what's your kind of process when you go through? Like, how do you shoot raw, or like what do you do?
Yeah, yeah. So I always shoot raw one always. Just the ability, like the how dynamic the images are, especially with the exposure. Like I have to have it. The more resolution. Not that I use like the most highly like insane new equipment or anything. Um, yeah, I mean, like back when I did more like editorial like style stuff. Yeah, I mean, I would take just like multiple images and do like the light painting and all that stuff. And then combining all the exposures to get like one good image. Now my work's morphed to more like I was saying earlier, more about like the feel, capturing moments and kind of doing more like raw photography instead of doing a ton of editing. I actually try to do as minimal editing as possible now. Um, I mean, like I used to shoot Canon all the time. Now it's like I really just shoot Leica. Like I shoot 99% of my work with the Leica M10. Same thing. It's like 24 megapixel, nothing crazy, but I mean everything is on this. And I can like move and shoot really fast with it. I'm quick with the focusing. It's it kind of like brought the love for photography back for me because like with all the Canon automated stuff, like I was getting bored. And I actually didn't shoot for a little bit, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try this Leica stuff out and kind of morph that way. And my style, I mean, my style is still the same, but it's kind of morphed to more capturing. Like I really enjoy photographing people at events now. And actually, I get most of my gigs now because people are, hey, I love that portrait. Like, you want to come shoot my cars? And I get a lot of stuff that way now, which is fun instead of just taking one photo because everybody's out like at Car Week taking photos. That's why Car Week is so much fun. But yeah, like I do a lot of portraits now, and yeah, it helps a lot.
Yeah, I think like incorporating different themes with that around the car helps to kind of create a story. And like you
Hmm.
said, like everybody's going to get the same photo of the car, but if you can, build like a sequence around it, like there's a car and there's a dog and there's a person with a funny hat on or whatever, like I'm sure
Yeah.
that's part of it. Happy smiles. The same with like filmmaking, like if you're making like a highlight of the day,
Hmm.
people want to see what like the ambiance, like you're saying, like what happened there, rather than just like seeing the cars. And I think that's
Yeah.
what helps to kind of create something that people want to watch and will come back for more.
Hmm. Yeah, and honestly, like when I do the photo shoots for people, well, like especially like companies, like I I almost set up the storyline kind of like in my head, and I have the sequences and everything. Like okay, and yeah, because like shooting video, like I've never really done video. I did a little bit of video like back in the day, but kind of setting up a storyboard. I set up a storyboard instead of just going out and be like, oh, I'll just capture photos. I set up a storyboard and try to go through the storyboard in my head to like make sure I feel um, to tell a story instead of just like, oh yeah, here's like 10 photos of your car. I try to, like you said, create a story with the photos. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do with photography, right? But yeah, so I mean, I try to really nowadays like tell a story with the photos instead of just snapping pictures, being like, look at these cool pictures I took.
Cool. And then for people who are thinking about Car Week, like what are some good like resources or places they can go? Like there's websites and different articles they could read.
Yeah, I mean, to all the shows, I mean, really now I just all I do is go on like the Pebble Beach Concourse website, and I just like, especially when I'm planning for the years ahead, because they have a list out of when all the concourse Sundays are. So I'm like, okay, now I know if it's going to be on this week on during August, I know everything else is going to kind of line up. But um, on a website, I think it's called like visitmonterey.org or something like that. They usually list out every single event that's happening, the days, times, links to them. That's usually the best resource. I can't remember the website off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it's like visitmonterey.org, and then they have like a car week section.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Yeah, it lists all the stuff, and then
Mhm.
all the websites for the particular events. I guess they're not as detailed, but they give you an idea of times and things.
Yeah, and then like what I do, like I just open or I just make like a Google sheet, and then I put everything in there so I can kind of like have a checklist of like what I'm gonna go to where and when. And then during car week I'll just kind of like check off the list because sometimes I just get so wound up on 17 Mile Drive and I'm like, oh shoot, I just missed like whatever events going on. Or they were doing like a drive with like the McLaren Club or something. I don't know. But yeah, I try to keep a checklist to help myself stay organized because I go off and do other things and don't recalibrate.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to keep organized and yeah, seeing on Instagram, oh, there's another event on somewhere else and you missed it. But if you have like a plan ahead of times in a calendar or something, you can kind of know where things are going to be and where you got to try to get to. And
Yeah, and some people get all stressed out about trying to get everything. It's impossible to see everything,
yeah,
and don't get all stressed out about it. Just make your hit list of things you want to go see or cars you want to see. But yeah, just you can't make it to every event. You can't photograph everything.
and then any advice for like photographers who want to like take a picture of somebody's car, like through your experience, like what has worked best for you to like, talk to an owner or try to get them to a different location or like, what do you say? What do you kind of, how do you introduce yourself? That kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So like when I don't have anything set up with a client or whatever, if I'm just driving around 17 Mile Drive, most of the time, if you're on 17 Mile Drive, it's like the Wild West. You can just show up, just jump in and start taking photos. Like if there's like one person there photographing, usually I stay away. But if there's like a big group of people, which is usually the case, it might look like it's some exclusive photo shoot, but it's not. There's like 400 people behind you. Um, but yeah, like a lot of the owners will post like, "Hey, I'm gonna go 17 Mile Drive at like 3 p.m. today," and then there'll be a bazillion people out there. But everyone's pretty respectful. I mean, if you just jump in on 17 Mile Drive and start taking pictures, I mean, the owners know it's gonna happen. But if you're gonna ask them for like to go like do photos somewhere else, like just one on one or individual, um, yeah, like if I know who the owner is, or even if I don't know him, I'll walk up and say, "Hey, how's it going? Like my name," I introduce myself, like name's David Coyne, nice to meet you, love your car. Didn't I just really just talk about the car and just be myself? And usually that can kind of morph into it. What I see a lot of like younger guys do is they just try to jump straight into it, like I'm hustling, just jump in, like, "Hey, like let's go do a photo shoot, like I'm awesome," and it's like people don't react well to that. I mean, I'm just being blunt, but people don't react well. But it's, I mean, if you show up, you say hello, nice to meet you, um, talk to them a little bit. If you're nice to them, they'll be nice to you, and especially car week, they'll be cool with it, and they'll usually people will say yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I think that's good advice. Like, cause I'm sure they get asked a lot, like, can I take your photo or can I do this? Can I do that? And a
Mhm.
lot of the times they probably just like have their guard up because I'm sure they're, you know, have a lot of money depending on what car they have. They probably. see it all the time. So it's a matter of meeting them, being personable, and trying to relate to them on a way. And I guess talking about the car is that kind of that thread that you could kind of go through.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of times, like, I never really ask them for a photo shoot. I'll just like talk with them, be like, oh, like, yeah, like, what's your social or what's your Instagram? Or it's like, oh, I follow you on Instagram. I love your stuff. And then you just after you kind of set up the duck for next time. It's probably not great for car week advice, but you set up the duck for next time, and you go, hey, like, and then you message them later, like, hey, it was really nice to meet you. I love your car. Hope to see you soon. Something like that. If you do that, they're probably going to go to your Instagram or your website, check out your work, and if they like it, they'll contact you for a shoot. Automotive photography, videography is such a saturated market now, and it's like, yeah, it's like you really gotta stand out. And really, my biggest advice is just be yourself. Don't rush anything either, and always be willing to learn. People ask me all the time, like, well, how do you do it? Just be yourself, be willing to learn, and it's okay if people say no, and don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, because you gotta. It's like you gotta like be there at the right time, like at the right place at the right time, but
Hmm.
also be like available and like willing to do like go the extra mile sometimes. And like
Yep.
yeah, because depending on what it is, like they could always give it to the next guy, next guy, next. But if you're there and you're available, like they give it to you, then you build that rapport and you could be the
Hmm.
go-to guy. But yeah, it's like like you said, providing something of value that they're gonna really appreciate, I think helps.
Yes, tremendously.
So and then in terms of like when you get to Monterey, like you probably have to book a hotel months in advance because you look on the website now and it's kind of on like Google or whatever, everything's booked, everything's like super expensive. Like, where do you kind of stay? Like, do you stay in Monterey or do you kind of get somewhere outside of it and drive in and out? And how does that kind of in terms of accommodation?
So I always stay in Monterey. I kind of stay near Spanish Bay. It's on like the north gate, almost the south gate. It's on the north gate going into 17-mile drive. So I always stay at Spanish Bay, or either rent a house, or there's a couple other hotels around there. But yeah, you need to book at least by like November or December. But usually I book 1 year in advance, or when I check out, I rebook for the next year when I'm checking out, when I'm at Monterey.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so really, my best advice is book it a year in advance.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you book a year in advance, um, you can get discounts, you can get cheaper rates. There's a couple places that will stick to their normal rates, but most other hotels will start jacking everything up to like four, five, $600 a night, even more. But yeah, when you book a year in advance, you avoid a lot of that. If you're gonna do Pebble and then Quail, then it's not that bad, because then you just drive in. You can spend all day around Monterey and be like, okay, drive back. I know a lot of people that usually stay about an hour away, or they're from like the Bay Area and they drive down.
Oh, yeah.
Um, yeah, but yeah, I mean, usually I stay. I always book a room, even if I'm not sure I'm going to go that year. Which, I mean, I've been every year anyway, so it doesn't matter. But I always book it because you can always cancel it, or update it to someone else that can't go. But
Right.
I always book it regardless.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to get it in there.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, so and then what about like in terms of eating? Like, is there food around, or do you bring your own packed lunch? Like, how do you?
Yeah. So um, now that my wife always comes with me to car week, we usually like the week before we just take a cooler and we buy a bunch of food for the week, just because eating out is expensive, and we'll like go out to dinner like some of the nights, but just for like breakfast and um, just like early mornings, or if I'm gonna just jump on the road to sit on 17-mile drive, I'll just usually have a bunch of snacks, food, drinks, Gatorade, stuff like that I do. But if you're gonna want to go out to eat, there's a lot of amazing places. There's a place in that we always go to that is incredible. It's probably one of the better Italian food restaurants. It's called Mezzaluna's. It's not in Carmel. It's oh my gosh, what's it called? It's north, but it's really good. Um, yeah, it's Mezzaluna's. It's like a feta, like a cheese kind of like bar place, but they have all this Italian food, cocktails and stuff. It's really good. Um, I'll uh, I'll try to find. I'll send you the link, but that place is really good. And then my wife and I usually go to La Aubergine or whatever it's called, the Michelin star restaurant. We usually do that on Sunday, so I'll go do all this stuff in the morning, and then we'll go to the Michelin star restaurant as a treat to ourselves before we go back to work.
That's a little as a little treat. Does your wife
Yeah.
like cars, or you kind of have to?
She's not like super into it. She goes and just kind of like does her own thing up in Monterey. I mean, this year is going to be a little different for us because we have right now she'll be a 3 month old here pretty soon. So she'll probably take the baby to the aquarium and just kind of like do her own things. And then like we usually go to dinner every night. But yeah, usually during the day I'm out just doing whatever.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's part of like yeah, keeping the wife happy, like giving them something to do while you're trying to, I'm trying to work here. Like you go to the, yeah, send them off
Yeah.
somewhere. And I'm sure
Yes.
like there's lots of stuff to do in Monterey that's not car related.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, usually during the day it's just me by myself. Sometimes she'll go to 17 Mile Drive and kind of hang out with me, which is cool. And we'll sit and just like watch cars drive by and stuff. Like we did that last year and the year before on the Saturday, like in the morning.
yeah. And it's a nice like view, nice like location with the beach and everything, the rocks,
Hmm.
the golf
Yep.
course, or the grass. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a good spot. But is there anything else you wanted to talk about in terms of Monterey or photographing, anything in general?
No, I mean for Monterey, I mean that's really it. I mean a lot of it is like just kind of going with the wind and just kind of like doing what happens. And like this year, like usually I have like a whole game plan of everything I'm going to do, but since I got a baby, like this year, really the only two things I'm scheduled to do is just the quail, and then Pebble on Sunday. But the all the other days, I don't have anything scheduled. I don't have any photo shoots booked. We'll see if anybody books anything as it comes up. But I was gonna honestly try to take it a little easy this year. But um, yeah, like I'm not shooting for any OEMs this year or anything like that. But I am shooting the quail, and then I'm kind of in talks right now to shoot for Pebble again.
Oh, cool. You have to be persistent, but sometimes you just have to know when to like leave it alone. Because if I was
Oh
like
yeah,
too persistent, then they wouldn't. They'll just be like, "All right, put him on the blacklist. He's
yeah,
annoying."
yeah. I'm the same way. Like I'll be slightly persistent, but like when I'm told no like 2, 3 times, I'll just be like, okay, I give up. I give up.
Yeah, next year.
But yeah, I mean that's what's so hard with. I mean, I always apply as freelancer. I don't apply as like a social media like influencer, just because it's like things change. Like social media every year, like reach will go. It'll has these crazy swings up and down, and um, yeah. So that's why I'm like. Yeah, like I have a lot of like followers and stuff, but like the reach some years is really good and other years it's down by like 60% and then it swings way back up. But whatever. I mean, and same thing, like I have a ton of people on Facebook. I think I have like almost 500,000 like people on my Facebook page, but no one sees it.
Yeah,
Nobody goes on Facebook anymore, so it's like useless. And my reach on Instagram is dramatically more, and I have like not even a tenth of the amount of followers on Instagram. But yeah, we don't even go down that rabbit hole.
yeah. It's crazy how it works. Like I just posted like a photo set like the first time in like 3 years or something, like 10 photos. And
Yeah.
you think, oh, it's nothing, not gonna do anything. And then it got like 20,000 likes. I'm like, holy shit. And it's like 99% like not your followers. So it's like
Hmm.
sometimes they just push something into like the explore feed or whatever, and it goes well, but you can't replicate that every time. You can't be like, hey, look, this is like photo went really well. Can I do it for your brand? They'll be like, sure, but you can't
And
guarantee anything.
yeah, and like what's really funny now, because like when I talk to people who are going to hire me, it's cool when they hire you for like the work too, because I know a lot of times like shooting for media, like companies, they want to know like what your reach is and stuff, which I mean for that it's extremely important. But I mean a lot of my stuff, like I've had a client tell me they're like, I don't care about what your reach is. Like we just like your work. I'm like, great, that's why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
But I mean it's always a frustrating thing when your reach swings way back and forth. And like I never do reels or videos, so I knew instantly my Instagram page was doomed. So
Yeah, well, like they keep changing it too. It's like they're back and forth and in and out. So you have to try and keep up. But apparently
yeah.
it's to do with shares. They push the algorithm if there's more shares, and it's like, all right. So yeah,
And I'm too lazy to keep up with it, so I
yeah,
knew my page was just gonna stop growing. But whatever, I still post stuff, but I mean, I definitely do get lazy. Like I tried to make everything like a story, but then I get lazy like this week, and then all of a sudden it's just like one photo, it's just a picture. I'm like, here's an awesome car, and I'm like, okay, I need to like stick with like telling the story because they always do better. But just posting a lot less because I don't have as much time to like go out and go to car shows and stuff much anymore, which is sad, but it's the truth.
yeah. So that's true. But yeah, so as to wrap up, like, do you have any advice for someone who wants to, become a photographer or go to Monterey or like, create their own, style in terms of photography and
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Um, I'll go down the route of photography and advice for photography, and then just clients, kind of like what we kind of briefed over a little bit. But like for photography, if you want to become a professional photographer, I mean, it's not about the gear. It's about your artistic style, how you capture a moment, your eye, like what you can see. And even when you start out, don't worry about like copying people's styles, because as you go through multiple styles, you'll start to develop your own. You're like, okay, like I like this style, but I'm gonna kind of like tweak it and change it. Don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to try new things, different things that people haven't tried, or don't worry about what the trends are, what's popular, not popular. Do what makes you happy, and what your eye likes. That's my advice, just because you'll stress a lot less. And then, hey, if your style becomes trendy, then you were there first. So, um, and then same thing with like getting clients. Just be yourself. Don't be afraid to talk to people. Don't like push yourself to like become a photographer for them, or a videographer, or even if it's like painting, any kind of art cycle. People will choose you for your style and also for your personality. It's like a job interview. You get hired because of how you're going to gel with them or their team. It's the same way with getting photography clients. If they like you, they'll hire you, even if you're not the best artistically on the street. They'll still choose you because of who you are, and I think that's extremely important. Those are my advice and dad tips for the day.
yeah. No, that's great. I think that's perfect. Like that's what people need to hear because people get stuck down like the gear route or like making it the latest trend. But if they find their own voice, they find their own style, and be that like person that's able to talk rather than being like that stuck up artist that doesn't talk to anyone. Like being a photographer, like it's part of the job to like relate to people and try and convince them that you're the one to for the job. Like you said, like a job interview every day.
And thank you, Roy. I really appreciate you reaching out. And I've never done a podcast before or anything, so this was really fun, really cool. So thank you.